Nowadays, newspapers are pretty obsolete, so we use online employment where you could set up the actual application online and have people fill it out, and then it saves you trying to decipher hieroglyphics if they do hand printing or try to type in the areas provided. With an online form, you get all the information. Also, in theory, it targets a population with some computer skills, but that may not necessarily always be true anymore. And then, of course, you have a low cost to the company. You don't have to pay for advertisement, although they do now have job sites that will help you find employees, and they do some of the initial screening. E-government, like I said, government to government is, or government to citizen, I should have said instead of consumer. Government to citizen has been a fantastic way of adding to democracy, and I like to call it e-democracy. There's sites like FirstGov, but it's been renamed again. I can't remember what the new name is, but if you go to whitehouse.gov, it will give you a link to it. Arizona got a lot of information online. Same way with Maricopa County, and then I don't know about you, but if you live in Phoenix, you can pay your tickets, you can pay your renewal fees for anything, just about. You can pay your water bill, your electric, well, not your electric, well, you can electric bill, but that's usually not the government. One of the things that kind of shocked me is when I got a divorce, I was able to download all my information, and it was a legal document from Maricopa County court system. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was kind of bizarre in my mind that anybody could do that, and that I didn't have to go all the way down to the government building to get an official document that what was online was good enough. Now, another thing that's kind of shocking is one of the major leaders in e-government is the state of Arizona. Now, you would have thought that it would be California because of all the Silicon Valley startups that are in the state, but that's not necessarily the case because IBM worked a long time ago, and then there's some other vendors too nowadays. But they did a joint venture with the state, and they literally put up a lot of the services online, which saves us money. That's a good thing. Now, there was an internet bubble in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000, and the reason was that number one was bad business plans. And what I mean by that is companies knew that they were going to sell a product for less than its cost, but they would make it up in volume. And I kid you not, they were actually presentations that said that. Well, part of it was they were hoping that advertising dollars plus being able to sell demographic data about their customers would make up for some of it, but it was way underestimated the amount of advertising dollars. And then, just poor customer service is another reason. People can walk down the road or drive down the road to a brick and mortar service, and if the price isn't that much difference and you're going to get good customer service and people are going to help you understand what you need to buy, they're going to do that instead of going online, unless they absolutely have no time to do it and they're just going to make a rushed decision. And then, if that's the case, what happens most of the time is the fact that you will um, get that product back. So it's going to have a higher overhead. So that was another reason that they hadn't planned for. So that's my presentation. You can download it and look at it, and hopefully I'll have the latest and greatest. No, thank you. Um, some other things that I wanted you should watch this SEO rep. It's kind of silly. I agree with most of the stuff. A couple items that I don't agree with is the strong versus B for bold. But that's really minor. Or using div tags instead of tables. You can go table happy and you can also go div happy, but for the most part, this design coding is pretty good. And then I've got a page that's kind of like a checklist of what you can do to improve your search engine optimization. There's also a couple cartoons that kind of highlight what's happening. It's kind of amazing. This is something we discovered was that it's sort of like, actors say there is no bad press. Well, we found out that that might necessarily be true here with websites. If you get a lot of people complaining, that's links to your website that will help search engine optimization for your site. And it's amazing how many people don't look at the comments when buying. Well, one, you should always do that, and two, Google's trying to change that, but they've been not super successful on that. Like I said, I would just kind of use this as a checklist. Plus, there's uh, some interesting cartoons. The two most important areas is right here: the SEO Starter Guide, and then Google's Webmaster Tools. Those are outstanding resources, and they're coming straight from what I call the horse's mouth, because Google's an 800-pound gorilla, and they're the ones that pretty much set what search engine optimization is, and so it pays to pay attention to what they're thinking and looking at right at this moment. Come on, there we go. And then also, I've gone over this earlier, there's some good notes on what good design is. It never hurts to kind of look at them again. And also, once again, at the bottom, there's some really good resources on what is good in terms of design. Uh, just please make sure that your site is validated for the final project. This has been the biggest mistake that most of my students make, is they'll validate 4 of the 5 pages, and it never fails. I always catch the 5th page. That tells you about how I check all the pages. But it's definitely worth it to do that. I don't want you to lose a lot of points by not validating. And if you follow some of the good notes on design here, you'll be in great shape. So that's all I have for class 13. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing your final projects.